Sometimes I make music because music comes to me on its own. This is what I feel. And also, of late, I have made some customized music which were driven by the assignments that came my way. Since this is my profession, certain projects are time bound. They have to be, of course, which makes waiting endlessly for new ideas to float in organically a luxury. We can't afford that. A deadline at such moments is good, is a positive thing, as it nudges a lazy artist, reminds him or her that it's time to come up with a fresh piece of creation and make a mark with that within a given span of time. But that very deadline has its pros and cons too. The pressure that it brings along can hinder development and result in a product that may not be the best from that particular artist.
Talent is a gift to be handled with care and respect. When you lose touch with the power you are born with, it is bound to become blunt or even vanish over time. The more we chisel it by practicing, it remains our second nature, present and nurtured. In this case, it is tricky as I cannot say that I sit down to practice composing and writing regularly. It would be really forceful that way. But to make sure that I do not keep my audiences wait forever, I try to not lose touch with this side completely. Although I'm not too hard on myself, but I try and stock up my song library whenever I can. This is like riyaz, which also serves during periods when I run out of music and ideas and I have to submit or play a new track maybe to someone.
Leisure times work really well for me if I talk about building up my song library. Traveling to new places, which my work, of course, helps me to. Otherwise, also, vacations, free time generally, and meeting new people, seeing new cultures, throwing myself in different setup, in different surroundings, in nature, helps me a lot. These are things which can broaden our universe, inner universe. Along with that, it'll enhance what we conceive and create ultimately, and what we make of these experiences. These are some of the abstract formats though, but now, finally, I'm going to share with all of you some concrete ones, which might be helpful for a newbie. When such a thing as a song doesn't come naturally, it is important to decide what our starting point can be. An easy pictorial example would be of doodle art, where one starts with simply a point and then develops the rest of the drawing in an unplanned manner. From zero to this beginning is the first step, from space to something. Now, let me take you to the studio quickly so that we can start our session and discuss in what ways we can create an original out of thin air.
So one breezy afternoon, I was just sitting in my balcony, and a very equally breezy melody, I would say, that came to my mind. I think the I think the wind kind of brought it to me because I was enjoying my leisure time, and it was a period when the lockdown was just declared, and we were all stuck at home and had loads of free time, which is very, very unlike me. So, anyway, coming to the song, the melody was somewhat like this. So I needed, it's not when I like a tune which I compose, I store it. I don't discard it, but mostly I'm very, very critical. I don't store all the tunes that come to me in my mind. But this one I stored immediately, and not just that, I felt urgently the need to write on it. So I wrote on it, and I came up with some nice Bengali lyric, and I love writing in Bangla because it is my mother tongue. দূর বহু দূরে আলসে দুপুরে. It was a lazy afternoon, so I wrote alshe dupur. It means a lazy afternoon. দূর বহু দূরে আলসে দুপুরে দাঁড়িয়ে আছে দুটো মন, কার নাম ধরে সেই কাক ভোরে ডাকলো যারা অকারণ, সে কথা তো বলা বারণ, ব্যালকনিতে টুকরো মেঘেরা কি বলে শোন, ওদের ছাতে অপেক্ষা কি জমেছে এখন. So this is the first technique in which I composed the melody first and then wrote on the melody.
Let's come to number 2. This is the second way which you can take, that is coming up with an original thought, then developing a lyric, and finally composing over it.
Talking of an original thought, it's sometimes a very, very difficult thing to crack, and the song which I'm going to talk about now came about very, very naturally to me. Actually, the lyric came first to me, and I wrote 2 lines and I kept it. I had no plans to make it into a song. The lyric is कांधे पे तेरे कुछ आंसू रखे हैं, आंगन में तेरी कुछ यादें रखे हैं. I have kept some teardrops on your shoulders and I have left some memories at your place. This is what it started with. I really liked the idea of कांधे पे तेरे कुछ आंसू रखे हैं. I haven't heard any such thought before in any other song. I could not imagine any other song having such lyric. So I thought of developing this into a song, and for that I decided to compose on the lyric. And there are some confinements when I do that, because generally a melody comes first. I'm that kind of a composer, and then I write. But in this case, it was just the reverse. So I made a melody over it, which was like कांधे पे तेरे कुछ आंसू रखे हैं, आंगन में तेरी कुछ यादें रखे हैं, ओ कांधे पे तेरे कुछ आंसू रखे हैं, आंगन में तेरे कुछ यादें रखे हैं, खिड़कियों पे extension of that same thought.
खिड़कियों पे इंतजार रखे और कभी तपती सांसें भी रखे और कभी तपती सांसें भी रखे कांधे पे तेरे कुछ आंसू रखे.
Although this is a song of a longing, but there's cheerfulness also, because it talks about waiting. Because if you're waiting to meet your loved one, then of course there's a sense of cheerfulness to it. There's an element of cheerfulness to it. So it is somewhere hovering between melancholy, longing, and an excitement, eagerness to meet the person you're waiting for.
Number 3 is super interesting because this is internally experiencing a situation to set a mood for a new song to come. For example, it can be anything. Supposedly distance from a loved one, maybe.
So in this case, if I choose a genre like reggae, first I thought of R&B, then I thought of reggae. So first we'll develop a loop which is very, very specific to reggae. So somewhat like this. When I let this pattern constantly play in a loop, so that I can come up with different stuff.
मेरा दिल दिल में धड़कन धड़कन के रेशे में तू बसा तेरा दिल मेरी नादानी पे क्यों हंसा.
So in the process of jamming, we kind of crack a tune, and along with that, because it's a very, very cheerful kind of a genre, so I thought of some lyrics which can be equally light-hearted, which can suit the mood of the melody. And I have a wonderful, very, very senior guitarist Dada with me of Kolkata. He's one of the senior most people I know in Kolkata, in my city. And I'm so lucky to have him for the demonstration today for this chapter, Creating an Original. Shom Chakraborty.
Thanks.
In a project where the voice has been selected beforehand, the vocal texture itself of the singer who's going to sing the song finally can be an inspiration for the composer. And the new song can be absolutely tailor-made for the singer. In my songs, I would say this has been mostly the other way around.
An instrument line can also be an inspiration to crack a new soundtrack, a whole new production. So in this case, we are here with you all to show you how that can be done. So Shomda is going to help me do that. First, here is a rhythm loop. It's a hip hop rhythm loop that we have selected from the list of loops that were available here. So let's play that. Now with this loop, we are trying to add a groovy bass line which will add to the funk. Now I'll let this whole thing, play in a loop, and try to jam with it. Let me see what I can do. So this can also be a very, very interesting technique if we it's a collaborative technique in which you can jam with your fellow musicians, and they can also come up with their creative side to bring something new on the plate.
In India, in my country, I've always seen while growing up, still now, I think, a large part of people's playlist is occupied by the music that gets created especially for movies, exclusively for the films, Indian films. And music plays a vital role in the success of a movie also, many a times. So, thereby, you can understand that music drives films in India, in a way. It used to, always. Cinema and visuals. Eventually, I had to come to this because these evoke creativity. And in case of film scoring, I think the vision of the maker, by maker I mean the filmmaker, that itself is a huge inspiration for the composer and the writer. The story also decides what kind of music it needs. Apart from that, the preferences of the director and producer and people who put money into a project have to be catered to by the composer. Market pressures also shape the work of a composer and the final output by a composer in such times.
Since I chose the rag Purvi because I assumed a situation that I'm doing a film which has an epic story, and since I already mentioned that I believe that Indian rags they are of such nature that gel really well. They are very compatible with films which are larger than life and have royal stories. Maybe if I don't know if I'm being able to express myself accurately, but the song which I came up with has has the essence of Purvi. It starts with Purvi as I had this rag as my starting point, but later on I have obviously introduced other notes, and it has deviated a bit. So it goes like this. I had learned from my Guruji a beautiful bandish in this rag, Purvi, which was like Jeete jeete din bahut beete sapan ko bhare bhandar avarite jeete jeete din bahut idea of the key phrases of Purvi, which are very much present in the Bandish. And this song, which I composed for especially for this demonstration, goes like this. अखियों में तू छोड़ गया क्यों सदियों का सावन आँखियों में तू छोड़ गया क्यों सदियों का सावन पलक झपकते ही तू आया और गया साजन 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 अखियों में तू छोड़ गया क्यों सदियों का सावन.
The larger than life canvas of Indian cinema and multiplex movies requires a certain kind of music to be made. Although this mindset is diminishing, is fading away with time and also with constant invasions of mediocrity in the garb of something unconventional, something different. The amount of freedom that composers get in movies while working in them is also diminishing sharply. On the other hand, thankfully, independent music is like a savior. It allows artists like me to breathe. Each creation in this zone is like a sliver of my perceptions, thoughts, experiences, and philosophies. A listener is more likely to find the person that I am in my indie pop album and singles as compared to the film tracks that I am part of and the ones that I made. This observation might not hold true for every other artist. Both spaces are worth being in as there's so much to take home. Both listening to everything and listening to nothing sometimes are essential. The first helps to broaden our spectrum as a musician, while the latter helps to find our own identity, which is an original artist's blueprint. For me, my playlist is solely for my enjoyment and strengthens my knowledge base also. I cannot always shape my work. The silence around me and also within me shapes the work that I do. It shapes the creator that I am. It wakes up the composer, the yogini, who gives birth to the darkest, deepest, and sweetest music.